So we know that Zack Snyder is a big fan of Ayn Rand.
Yeah.
He has a production company named the Stone Quarry Productions, which is a reference in The Fountainhead, an Ayn Rand novel. Ayn Rand, she's like a political, philosophical person.
She wrote some books.
She wrote a lot of books. Most famously, she wrote Atlas Shrugged, which is a giant metaphor for her like political ideology, which is known as objectivism. Which, to quote Atlas Shrugged, this is why I dug out my copy of it. Which objectivism can be described as: in society, we don't owe anything to one another, and acting like we do is harmful.
A man should never expect another man to sacrifice for him, nor should he sacrifice himself for other men.
Be anything they need you to be, or be none of it. You don't owe this world a thing.
It's exactly the same.
Which is kind of a parallel to what Jonathan Kent says in the first movie, where it's like,
what was I supposed to do? Just let him die?
Maybe.
It's basically an ideology to be the biggest asshole you can.
Yeah, hardcore capitalism.
Capitalism is also one of the 4 tenets.
What are the tenets?
Tenet number 1 is reality exists as an objective absolute, which means reality is existence. Number 2 is reasons is our means of perceiving that reality. So reason is good.
All right.
So it basically, it's kind of self-important, like obvious things, but within the ideology, it's kind of the idea of like, okay, we need to objectively look at reality. Then there's selfishness. You have to work for your own interests. The idea is basically we are all entitled and must achieve our own happiness. However, one of the biggest problems with Ayn Rand is she never acknowledged privilege, that some people have inherent privilege, and that she also finds altruism to be bad, which is the idea of helping others. And then the 4th tenet is capitalism is best, basically. And it's kind of funny, because when you look at we talked about it a little bit, that the 3 characters, Batman, Superman, and Lex Luthor, are kind of the same person.
Right.
They're all 3 people who believe to have found the best version of how to help humanity. Because Zack Snyder has talked multiple times that he wants to adapt The Fountainhead, which is one of Ayn Rand's big novels. That is also, like, all of her like fiction novels are basically ways for her to push her political ideology. The Fountainhead is basically a story of her version of the ideal man. A lot of people read it as like a joke, but no, she meant it completely seriously.
All right.
Zack Snyder, I have some quotes here from him, where he talks about The Fountainhead as I've always felt like The Fountainhead was such a thesis on the creative process and what it is to create something. My sort of thing with Zack Snyder is I don't know if his fascination with Ayn Rand and sort of her idea of the world is genuine, or if it's just he's an idiot.
So is a lot of the Ayn Rand libertarian ideology, does it mishmash with like Christianity or like hardcore Christians?
To an extent, yeah, it can.
Because there's a lot of Christian shit in this.
Right. But this is also where I think that the sort of Ayn Rand things kind of go a little bit up against Zack Snyder, because he's working with fixed characters. He's working with, Superman, Batman, and Lex Luthor, and Wonder Woman, and all these characters. He's not working from a complete nothing.
No, and he has certain kernels outside of the Ayn Rand thing that inform his view within the fiction of this, which is primarily Watchmen.
Although he does skew Watchmen more in that regard, because he idolizes Rorschach.
Rorschach's friends to the animals. Yeah, when he's not clowning around.
Why nutty?
Tremors of impact shook my arm.
Charity is a very marginal issue. One of my main tenets is that charity should never be a duty. And when you want to help someone else, it is proper, it's not evil, provided you do it on the basis of his value. Because he's a good person who suffers through no fault of his own, because he's a friend of yours, because he's a victim of injustice. Those are all helping values. But never on, if you grant a man charity on the ground of his flaws, his not accidental misfortune, but a misfortune brought about by his own evil.